Senator Braun.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Madam Secretary. By the way, that FFA get-together happens in the great city of Indianapolis each year.
It does.
And when those kids come to town, it's the most peaceful get-together of a lot of folks in one place.
Yeah.
And those blue jackets are all over the place.
Yeah.
I was there this summer. So when I came here 4 years ago, I always try to look ahead. Ran a company for 37 years, and if you didn't have a good business plan for the future, you were always going to end up in a cul-de-sac sooner or later. I'd be remiss. I sit on the budget and appropriations committees, and everything we're talking about here today is in peril in the long run if we don't get back to budgeting and appropriations that are done the old-fashioned way, where you go through regular order, where you actually use a budget committee. That should be the most important committee in the U.S. Senate. It's almost kind of attenuating into a useless appendage, and I think that puts in peril on health, education, labor, and pensions. All the people that come there to make sure there's going to be R&D there for whatever you're interested in. You don't do that by running now $1.5 trillion deficits, and we've kind of just woven that into the landscape of how this place works. I don't want to depress the discussion here, but it's a reality we've got to confront. And until we get that back into place, which is not that difficult, a little bit of political will, a little bit of discipline, some of the things we're talking about here today for farmers or for all the folks that are wrestling with hard to cure diseases are in that same peril, because the federal government should be the place where you could always go. We should be investing more in that stuff. And to do that, we got to be spending less on some of the things that, create these chronic now annual deficits. Earlier it was mentioned the difficulty of the hardest occupation I think God created, farming. It's the ultimate small business. Most are still small business enterprises, fraught with financial risk. I got started back when the farm crisis hit us nearly 40 years ago, and I remember what that was about. That was about the biggest change in farming that we'd ever seen in modern times. 160-acre farmers had to all of a sudden become 1,000-acre farmers. Now, that's a small enterprise. And the profit margin, in an absolute sense, has not changed much, from what it was then, and you got all that financial risk. So really what we do in terms of making it easier for farmers is so important, and Senator Tuberville drilled in on that. I come from a state that's got one of the heaviest concentrations in the poultry industry. I think we lead in ducks. Okay. We are really large in the turkey, grow out business. I'm from one of the two counties in the southern part of the state where there's a lot of activity, and they've recently had to contend with that added uncertainty of the highly pathogenic avian influenza. And when that hits, it is basically very few options. You're depopulating farms. You sometimes have to keep them depopulated for a long time. I work closely with APHIS and our other state agencies to ensure that Hoosier producers are receiving that kind of support, but I can tell you there's a lot of uncertainty on what is happening, and I want to just hear it from you that not only for poultry, I think the hog industry's got other issues. We got the chronic wasting disease on our borders that impact the recreational side of things. What's the USDA doing? How high a priority is it? Can I tell Hoosier poultry farmers back home that we are going to be putting more resources into something that when it hits us, it's devastating?
Emergency preparedness is something that is always top of mind. And as we look at foreign animal diseases and we look at high-path avian influenza, our partnership with APHIS is top-notch. Surveillance is important. Diagnostics, ARS is often brought in to do the diagnostics and to help whatever mitigation program in place. Avian influenza vaccines are being developed in Athens, Georgia. We just cut the ribbon on a brand new $158 million facility, BSL-3 facility, where we do all of our avian research. And so we can only be prepared because we have that capacity. And so working with APHIS and working with our state and local leaders, we want to be able to come in and be very, very responsive in terms of mitigating the impact. We can't control the pests and diseases, unfortunately, because they don't respect boundaries. But we can be prepared when we're faced with
And I think as we become more global in nature, it's going to be important that we pour more resources to it, and again, do it in the context of trying to reform some things on a broader scale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.